So if you read the description of this movie, crotchety old guy approaching death, is an atheist, and has to confront his own mortality up close and personal for the first time, it might not seem like much. But I don't think the description does it justice. One, the actor, the lead, is Harry Dean Stanton, and many interesting things come into play with that. One, he's a brilliant actor, so he makes this old curmudgeon incredibly compelling and likable. Two, this was filmed and shot shortly before his actual death, so it's so true to life. You feel like, to some extent, what you're watching his character go through was similar to what he was going through at the exact same time, kind of looking back on his life, approaching his death, and he's a famous actor, so he wouldn't be in the exact same conditions. He's probably much richer in a nicer place, but you feel like he's somewhat down to earth as a guy and probably wasn't in this fancy mansion and maybe was in a somewhat similar environment where he was interacting with ordinary people. And there's this great scene where he's actually in the movie talking to David Lynch, who's a real life friend. So again, it's just that true to life feeling that how often do you get to see a performance by an actor where you feel like the performance is so true to their current real life. And he was 89 years old when he filmed this, so impressive, and you just feel like you sometimes wish every great actor who's had this long career could have the equivalent of this movie, this kind of great send-off. Someone compared it to a cinematic Lifetime Achievement Award, and it really does feel like that. And one of the things I found most striking was just how beautiful the visuals in this film really were, and they show this guy, warts and all, his flab and his wrinkles, everything, and he's in this dry, barren desert, and nonetheless, just the cinematography is so excellent. You get so many beautiful shots, and I love movies like this, like Mudbound, Florida Project, where there's some of the most visually striking movies that I saw in 2017 of such not traditionally thought to be beautiful locations and people and figures, and that's the kind of cinematography I'm most impressed with. There's some great, hilarious, memorable moments, someone explaining Deal or No Deal, the game show, and someone looking at him incredulously and thinking it's ridiculous, and some great emotional, memorable moments. There's this great impassioned monologue that a guy gives about how he respects the tortoise, and how the shell on his back, yes, it's protection, but it's also his weight and his cross to bear, and it's also the coffin that he's going to be buried in. You wouldn't think that someone could give such a passionate speech about a tortoise, but he does. And a lot of movies that explore these themes about death and mortality, they can be very artsy and abstract and somewhat pretentious. You really feel like this, they try to confront these issues, but in a real, ordinary, average, down-to-earth way. And this was refreshing, but it also felt like it wasn't really saying anything about death and the philosophy of the acceptance of death that hasn't been said a million times at this point and almost have become cliches. And you did get the sense that the movie started with a lot of atheist cliches about, you know, the meaninglessness of life and the nothingness and how ugly life is, and then kind of moved to non-atheist, more accepting of death cliches nonetheless, though, and now it was more positive cliches, but it was still just cliches, stuff you've heard a lot before. And you might say, well, look, that's the only way it can be because we don't really have any satisfying answers on death. It's one of the things we can't really get a handle on, so their movie couldn't really say anything particularly profound because there really is nothing profound to say. It's about accepting death, even though we don't have any neat, profound answers. And I also feel like this movie, even though it wasn't saying on paper any particular quotes I could show you and say, oh, this is a profound quote, I do feel it set up a great ambiance and atmosphere and then had some nice dialogue and back and forth where if you got yourself in the right mindset, whatever that means for you, and watch this movie, yeah, maybe the characters on the show might not, or the characters in the movie might not be saying anything profound themselves, but if you sit back and you think and you watch and you feel, you might maybe think up some profound things on your own.